Now for a word from our sponsors. Talk about your mother. Start again? Okay.
Yes, I apologize.
No problem. But are we going to be recording now?
Yes.
Okay. Here we go. So again, our learning today is sponsored by the singers in memory of Chazan's mother, the Neshama should have an Aliyah. I would like to begin this morning's class where we left off from last week. Last week we talked about the significance of the word Adonai. We see in our Sidurim Yud Kei Vav Kei, but we don't pronounce the word as it's spelled. Instead, we use the word Adon, which talks about God as the master. What's the significance of the fact that God is our master? So that is born out of the Gemara in source number 1. The Gemara tells us, Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, Miyom Shebara Kadosh Baruch Hu es ha'olam. From the day that God created the world, Lo haya Adam shekaru la Kadosh Baruch Hu Adon. There was never a person that called God master, Ad Sheba Avram v'karo Adon, until Avram came along and called God the master. Vayomer Adonai Elohim ba'ameh eda ki arishana. This is a famous statement where Avram says, God, my master, how do I know that I will in fact inherit the land? So this is the first time the Gemara says the word Adon is used, and it becomes a very significant word for us in our prayers. In fact, the Gemara goes on to say that even Daniel, the great prophet Daniel, was only answered in the merit of this word that Avram introduced. The Gemara tells us in source number 1, paragraph number 2, Amarav af Daniel lo ne'ene ela bishvil Avram. Even Daniel only had his prayers answered because of this word that Avram introduced. Shene'emar v'ata shema Elokeinu el tvilat avadecha v'al tachanunav. Daniel prays, Hashem, listen to the prayers of your master and to his supplications. Va'er panecha mikdashecha, shine your countenance on your temple. Hashamim, that is desolate. Leman Adonai, because of Adon. Doesn't say lemancha, because of you, but leman Adonai. Again, I keep using Hashem's name because it's an instructive mode right now. We're teaching. We treat God's name with a tremendous amount of respect, and we don't just say it willy-nilly, but in the context of this year, I feel that it's appropriate. So you see, Daniel also says, Leman Adon. So what's the significance of Adon? What's the significance of the fact that God is referred to as master? So we saw last week from Rabbi Schwab that there was an understanding of God's role in the universe before Abraham. Anybody who has a mind, who has eyes that work, can see that there is a master creator. A world of such magnificence doesn't just come into existence by a big bang. There is an architect to the universe. And even before Abraham's time, they realized that such a being existed. What Abraham introduced to the world was the concept that there is a master who is intimately involved in all of our lives. Adon means master, in contrast to Melech. Melech means king. Melech means there is somebody that's governing the universe, but does not imply necessarily that a king has a unique relationship with all of his subjects. It's impossible. A king over many provinces, a king over a large kingdom can't know all of his people. A master of a household, though, knows everybody. So we start every blessing, Baruch Atah Adonai, Hashem, you are my master. We'll talk about the fact that you're my king. We're not there yet. I first remind myself that you are my master and you know me intimately well. You are familiar with all aspects of my life, and I rely on you in all aspects of my life. And that is the significance of the word Adon. That is what Abraham introduced into the world. A beautiful, beautiful insight by Rabbi Schwab. Rabbi Schwab supports this analysis with a verse in the Pasuk in Tehillim, in source number 2. David HaMelech says, Moneh mispar lekochavim, that God is the one that counts all of the stars. L'chulam shemos yikra. Each and every star has a name. The billions and billions of stars in the universe, God knows each and every one of them. Again, that's symbolic. We're not necessarily saying that a star has a personality like human beings do, but it's indicative of the fact that God knows every single particle of the universe in the most intimate of ways. There's nothing more intimate to a person than their name. God knows the name of every single star. And it's the same idea. Now, I want to share with you a very interesting insight from the Baruch She'amar on this word Adon. Now, the Baruch She'amar is Rav Yechiel Michal Epstein, the author of the Aruch HaShulchan, the Torah Tamima. He also has a sefer, Baruch She'amar, a beautiful sefer on tefillah. I have to be honest, my volume is my edition is a very, very old one. I was going through some old svarim. I think it was either my in-laws' house or my parents' house, and I came across this book. I felt like I stumbled upon gold. It's a magnificent book. I don't know if it's still printed, but it goes through, I'm sorry, Rabbi Rana? You could still get it. But it goes through, it's Rabbi Epstein, right? It's Rabbi Chimachal. So it goes through the various parts of the Siddur, and Rabbi Epstein was a linguist par excellence. So he will take apart a word and show you the etymology of the word, where it first appeared and its significance in the context of the Siddur. So the Baruch She'amar, Rabbi Epstein says, he doesn't understand, and this is really a question of Tosos, why the Gemara, and you'll see how this becomes relevant, why the Gemara focuses our attention on the word Adon that appears in source number 3. This is the verse that the Gemara quotes from. Vayomer Adonai Elohim b'ameh eda ki arishana. The first time Avraham introduces the word Adon. So Rabbi Yechiel Michal Epstein says, why does the Gemara focus our attention on that verse? In fact, 6 or so verses earlier, the word Adon is used by Abraham. If you look with me in source number 5, Pasuk Beis, Vayomer Avram, at that point he was still Avram, he didn't have the hey added to his name. Vayomer Avram, Adonai Elohim, ma titein li, my master, my God, what can you give me? Vanochi holich ariri, uvemesek beisi, hu damesek liazer. Avram basically said, God, I have no kids. What good are your promises if I have no kids? So asks Rabbi Yechiel Michal Epstein, as Tosfos does, why does the Gemara say Avram is the first one to introduce us to the word Adon, and it quotes the Pasuk Ches, the eighth verse in chapter 15. The word Adon is used by Avraham in the second verse in chapter 15. Why does the Gemara jump to the later verse? Does everyone understand the question? Yeah. Everyone understand the question? Jeff in the back, you got it? Why are we focusing on verse 8? Focus on verse 2. That's the first time it's actually said by Avraham. This is Tosos, it's Kasha. Tosos asks the same question, source number 4. V'im Tomar. Tosos is commentary on Brachos in that Gemara. He says, if you'll ask me, Amai lo maisikra Adonai Elohim matitein li. Why doesn't the Gemara bring the word Adon, which appears in the second verse, Shehu Kasav Kodem, that comes earlier? So Tosos does something that's like a trick that all biblical commentaries have in their back pocket. You know what all biblical commentaries like to do except for the Ramban? They say there's no real order in the Torah. The Torah puts verse 2 but first verse 8, but it didn't really happen that way. Really, verse 8 came first and then verse 2. That's what Tosos says in source number 4, paragraph number 2, V'yesh lomar, Sha'parshios lo ne'amru kiseder. That the verses are not really written in order. Ve'imukdam umuchar b'Torah, the Torah is out of order. V'zeh pasuk te'ben ha'basar ma'yakol l'chein. That the verse that the Gemara focuses on actually came first. That's what Tosos answers. That verse number 8, in actuality, came before verse 2. That's Tosos' answer. The Baruch She'amar says, no. You don't have to say that. You don't have to make the verses out of order. I'll tell you what the pshat is. Look at the verses. And you can see that the word Adon is used in different contexts. So go back. Let's look. Let's start with the first verse. So now we're in source 5. Verse number verse number 2. If you're using Artzul Chumash, we're at chapter 15, verse 2. Vayomer Avram Adonai Elohim ma titein li. My master, my God, what can you give me? Vanochi holei chari. I'm childless. What good are your blessings? So contrast that to verse 8. Vayomer Adonai Elohim ba'me'idak ki arishana. What can you give me that I know I will inherit the land? So it's actually kind of hard just to tell by looking at these verses alone. But I'll share with you what the Rabbi Epstein says. He says that the word Adon means master. The word Adon by itself means master. And master by itself is actually used earlier times in the Torah. For example, Avram, when he's speaking to the, I think with Avimelech, the word Adon is used. You can find it earlier in the Torah, or many times in the Torah for certain. The word Adon is used. It doesn't mean God, it means my master. Adon is a language of humility. Call somebody else your master. In verse 2, Pasuk Beis, Avram was just saying, my master God, what good are your blessings if I can't have any children, if I can't pass them along? That was Avram's usage of the word Adon in verse 2. Then, in between verse 2 and verse 8, something happens. What happens is verse 5, which is in source 5, the second paragraph. Vayotze Yosel hachutza. God takes Abraham outside. Vayomer habeit na hashamayma. Look at the heavens. Usfor hakochavim. My Avram, count the stars. Count the stars. Im tucha lisporotam. Can you count the stars? Vayomer lo kol yazarecha. That will be the number of your children. So this is a little bit Rabbi Epstein and a little bit me. At this point is where Avraham realizes that the God that I am dealing with is not only the God of the universe, but a God that cares intimately about me. A God that is going to change the course of my life. A God that just like knows every single star, knows me, and will change the course of the direction of my life. Because I'm getting a blessing that I'll have these children. And then, when Abraham uses the verse again, Abraham doesn't just mean my master. He means the master of the universe, who knows every single person, is deeply involved in everyone's life. And really, when Avraham uses the word Adonai in source 3, it really means to say Adon Ha'olam, the master of the universe that knows us all so well. And that change takes place when God tells Abraham to look at the stars. The stars. The ability to see that as grandiose as the universe is, God is in control, God knows the names of every star, God is directing every star. That transformation happens to Avram in Pasuk Hey, in verse 5. And then when Avram uses the word again, he doesn't just mean my master in terms of humility. He means my master who knows me. And that's why the Gemara focuses not on verse 2, but on verse 8. That's why the Gemara quotes the verse from our source number 3, not from source number 8. And the Baruch Shamar says you can also see this because in source number 5, with the second verse, when Avram says, what is it good if I have blessings? I have no children. Okay, so Avram is just saying, God, I'm complaining, I have no children. In source number 3, a lot of numbers to follow along, right? In Pasuk Ches, when that verse is used, Avram is saying, God, you are all powerful. You are giving me as a progenitor of Jewish destiny the land of Israel. How do I know that I will continue to inherit it for all time? Bama Eida ki arishana. He's not just asking about, how do I know I'm going to have children? That's a request that everybody has. Everyone wants to have children. Everyone wants to be blessed with offspring. But here, Avram was saying, how do I know that I'm going to have the right to inherit the land? That underscored Avram's understanding that he has a unique place in the annals of human history for Jewish destiny. There's an intimacy there, and that's why the Gemara focuses on that pasuk. That's the Adon that we refer to when we start our brachos. I thought that was beautiful. I hope you did too. If you didn't, I still thought it was beautiful. Okay, so that is what I wanted to share with you in terms of the word Adonai. one or two other points which I think are quite essential as well. So there are actual halachos recorded in Shulchan Aruch, what a person should think about when they are saying that word. Because as you'll see in Shulchan Aruch, there's a little bit of a duality here. There's a balancing act. Because in the Sidurim, Baruch Atah, the next word is spelled out. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Yud, K, Vav, K is what we say it, to avoid any possible recitation of the ineffable name. But the bottom line is that the word is Yud, K, Vav, K. We pronounce it Adon. We use the word master. But there are actually two words to keep in mind. This plays out lehalacha, because the Shulchan Aruch tells us that when we say a bracha, we should really try to have both meanings in mind. So now we have discussed the word Adon, means master. What does Yud K Vav K mean? What intentions do we have in mind when we see that word on the page? So the Shulchan Aruch tells us in source number 6, Yechavein bebrachos perish hamilos. So first of all, every time we say a bracha, we should have in mind the meaning of the words. Kishayazkir Hashem, when a person is making a bracha and they're saying Shem Hashem, Yechavein perish kriyaso ba'adnus shu Adon HaKol. When a person actually pronounces the word, this is Adonai, meaning master, you have to have in mind that God is Adon HaKol. God is the master of all. Intimacy, right? God is the master who knows all of us. Good. V'yechavim b'chsivaso b'yud. But you also should ideally have an additional piece of information in mind. When you see the word as it's written, Yud Hey, so what does that name imply? Shehaya v'hoveh v'yihiyeh. Haya hoveh v'yihiyeh. God was, God is, and God will be. You have to have both intentions in mind. Ubi haskiro Elokim Yechavein shehu takif Baal hayicholes ubal hakochos kulam. When we say the word Elokim, we have to have in mind that God is the owner of all powers. Everything is supported by God. There is nothing that is independent of God. That's what he means over here. Shehu takif Baal hayicholos. That God is the center of all power. Ubal hakochos kulam. There is no power that exists independent of God. God exists independent of the universe. Nothing in the universe exists independent of God. So there are a number of different things to keep in mind. It's not so easy. When we rattle off a bracha, so halavai, we should just think about what any one word means, right? We just rattle them off so quickly. Saying 100 brachos a day is not easy. Saying 100 blessings a day is a tall order. But at least we know on the books what we should have in mind. You have to have in mind, according to Shulchan Aruch, both. Adonai, as we say it, as it's read, meaning God is the master, the intimacy. But Yud K Vav K, as it's read, right, not as it's as it's printed, if you will. Haya hoveh v'hiyeh. God was, God is, and God always will be. Again, halavai, we should just have in mind like one word of a bracha. Keep in mind and not forget about all of these different kavanos. But it's important to know what's on the books. And what's in the books is a dual kavana, because there's a word that's printed and there's a word that we say. Yes, Jeff.
I'm not sure if this is extraneous or not. I don't think so. But in the Rosh Schwab discussion of Adon, which was so illuminating as combined with what you're talking about, he also did discuss the servant portion
right?
That we should really continually understand ourselves as the servant, in order that you really understand or accept the intimacy of the relationship.
Very good. Very good. Right. Jeff is making a good point that when we think about God being our master, it's not just in terms of God knowing us intimately well, but it's also an opportunity to work on our side of the relationship, making ourselves even more submissive to the will of the Creator. Yeah, beautiful point, Jeff. Doctor.
I'd like to suggest that in most, maybe all shuls, Orthodox shuls, when the chazan gets up to say brachas, many times he doesn't even pronounce. And I think someone, I'm not pointing a finger at anyone, should stop and say to that this is not the way. You have to
Read it
pronounce
correctly.
Yeah, that's correct.
Everybody's in a hurry.
It's correct. You know, the Sfardim, they have that artwork with the name of God, Yud Kei Vav Kei, and the menorah, and they have a whole elaborate thing, and they post them pretty prominently in the synagogues, and that's meant to help the people. You can look at something to focus. It's a tall order. It's very, very hard.
Also, continuing on with what Mendy just mentioned, also in that section that Schwab talked about, he does discuss that he says some people say Adoni.
Right.
In fact,
That's not right.
And what his word is, he says, you know what? It's gibberish.
Right.
It means nothing, which is really kind of what.
Right. You have to pronounce the right. Rabbi Schwab actually has a whole paragraph where he goes to town, very upset over people who have the wrong pronunciation, because if you don't say the name of God correctly, what are you going to say correctly? Yeah.
And he uses the word gibberish.
Right. Chazan.
But Avraham is saying, if I don't have children, how can I carry out your request?
Right.
But at that time, he already had a child. Am I correct?
No. Oh, no, he did. Yes, he did.
He already had a
No.
child. You
I have to, let me look it up. I don't think so.
If he did, what was on his mind?
I don't think he had a child at that point. Jeff.
That was early.
No.
That was early.
Ted Zayin, the next chapter starts, V'sarai eshet Avram lo yalda lo, v'la shivcha mitzris u'shma Hagar. The next chapter is when Hagar comes into the picture and Yishmael is born. At this point, he is fully barren. He and his wife do not have any children. Yes.
Is that why we say Adon Olam, the prayer at the end of davening? Because it has
Right.
V'hu Hayav.
Very good. That's a nice idea. It's interesting in the
For us
prayer
to
books.
remember.
Right. In the prayer books, the phrase Adon Olam, the prayer I should say of Adon Olam is first. It's first. So if you look in the Baruch Shemar, the Sefer I just mentioned, or Schwab, the first prayer they tackle is Adon Olam. I'm choosing to go in this route because there are different ways to start the morning in terms of blessings. To my understanding, one of the most correct ways is to start with the Baruch of Netilas Yadayim. You wash Netilas Yadayim, you say Brachas HaTorah, and then you can begin davening. So we're going to go in that path. But it's interesting, in the Sefer Baruch Shemar, I believe it's where I read it, he suggested the reason Adon Olam starts off all prayers is because who was the first one to introduce Adon? Avraham. Shach parallels who? Avraham. So if he introduced the word Adon, and our prayer of Shach which parallels Avraham, we'll start with a prayer that uses that word, and that's why Adon Olam starts all prayers. Interesting suggestion.
The end too, like on Shabbos.
Right. Very good. So a number of different points I just want to bring to your attention. As we're already talking about this piece in the Shulchan Aruch, in terms of what a person should focus on when they're saying their prayers, so just to share with you two beautiful insights of the Mishnah Brura. If you turn the page in source number 7, Mishnah Brura, written by the Chavetz Chaim. So first of all, when the Shulchan Aruch says you have to have in mind the meaning of the words, he quotes the Gemara in Brachos, Shelo Yizrok habracha mipiv. A person shouldn't throw out a blessing from his mouth. Elichabim be'es ha'amira v'yivarech benachas. A person should have in mind when they pray, and pray benachas. What's benachas? Gently, slowly, with intent. Again, very, very hard. Very, very hard. Not an easy thing to do. V'zel lashon Sefer Achinuch. I believe he's quoting from the Sefer Achinuch here. This is the commentary of the Sefer Achinuch. I could be wrong. Rabbi Ron or any does Samechas? I was racking my brain. What else could it be? Yeah. But Siman Mem Vav doesn't make sense. It would be mitzvah. I don't know. I'm not sure. He quotes from somebody with the acronym Samech Ches. If anyone's listening out there on the World Wide Web and wants to connect with me and let me know what Samech Ches is, I'd love to hear your suggestions. So he quotes from this sefer. Kishehu notel yadav, when a person washes their hands, oshem mevarich ala peiros or ala mitzvos, when a person makes a bracha over fruit or anything else. Hashiguros befi kol adam. When you say blessings that are very routine in our mouths, Yechavein libo l'shem boro. You have to really have in mind the Creator. Asher hifli chasdo imo, that was magnificently kind to us. V'nasan lo paperos o alechem lahanos mehem. That God has given us this beautiful fruit, this delicious bread to benefit from. V'tzivo ala mitzvos, and He commanded us in mitzvos, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. V'lo yasek adam ha'oseh davar b'minhag. You should not act like somebody who is acting on routine. Umotzi devarim befiv below higayon alev, and a person just rattles off the words without any focus at all. And the reason I'm bringing this down is because it's so interesting to see how our current issues are the old issues. Even the prophet Isaiah speaks about this very issue. As he quotes in the pasuk in Isaiah, the bolder words, Ya'an ki nigash ha'am hazeh befiv uvisvasav kibiduni, that the people approach me with their piv. What's piv? Their mouth. Uvisvasav kibiduni, they honor me with their lips. V'libo rachok mimeni, and their heart is distant from me. So, Dr. Gantrell, all I can tell you is ein chadash tachas hashamesh, and if it's hard to have congregations that are focused on saying the brachos correctly, there's nothing new under the sun. Even Isaiah was screaming about this. So there's a little bit of a nechama, knowing that we're not the only ones struggling with these issues, but it's a very powerful pasuk. A very, very powerful pasuk. Yan ki nigash ha'am hazeh befiv. They approach me with their mouth. Uvisosav kibiduni. They honor me with their lips. V'libo rachok mimeni. But their heart is far away. Yes, Chazan.
This business of Ein Chadash Tachat Hashem.
Yes.
Rabbi Reiner will remind me, one of the courses that we took, the early Jews who came to this country.
Okay.
The country,
right.
But they were in contact with rabbis in London.
Okay.
Any questions they may have had.
Right.
So in the course of events, they get a response that we still have certain problems.
Okay.
We have very wealthy Jews who come to the synagogue only once a year, twice a year.
Good.
When they come, they get all the honors.
That's
Reiner, am I correct?
things don't change. Things don't change.
Nothing changed.
That's it. So there's a comfort to that. There's a comfort to that. That's correct. Okay, so that was number one I wanted to share with you. Once we were learning the Shulchan Aruch, which talks about having a focus. When you say the words, it's a good chizuk for us. It's a good reminder for us. We really have to try to focus on the words. But the second part, I think, is even more critical. Not that the first part was not critical. The second part is l'maisa. When a person's saying a bracha, how many things, when you're saying God's name, do you have to have in mind? 2 things to have in mind? It's not easy. So the Mishnah Berurah quotes from the Gra, the Vilna Gaon, who says essentially that if you have to pick one, pick the way you say the words. We go primarily based on the spoken word and secondarily based on what's written. So if you're having trouble balancing out the concept of Adon, of Hashem being a master, and Haya, Hoveh, V'yeh, God was, God is, and will be, focus on the master element. That's the more critical takeaway. The Mishnah Berurah writes, Ubebiur Hagra, Kasav, in the commentary of the Vilna Gaon, he writes, Tilfi Omek Hadin, Ein Tzarech Lechavein Ela Perush Kriaso. You only really have to have in mind how it is read by your mouth. Tebechol Makom Holchin Achar Hakriya. We always go based on the spoken word. Av sheyesh ba'aksiva sodos gedolos. Of course, there's deep Torahs. There's much significance to what's written. But if you're having trouble balancing both, you focus primarily on Adon. Focus primarily on Adon. Yeah. Okay. Next word in the blessing. We're doing great. If we're averaging, a word and a half a week. We'll get to the rest of the tefillos, I don't know, next year or so. Okay. Baruch, we covered. Atah, we covered. Adonai, we covered. Elokeinu, we are just going to, I'm going to remind you what the Shulchan Aruch says, that Elokeinu means that God is the master of all powers, that we are completely contingent on Him, and that God is not contingent on us at all. Melech ha'olam, God is the king, that means king. Ha'olam. Rabbi Schwab says something beautiful about the word ha'olam. Rabbi Schwab says that the root word of olam is ne'elam, which means, what's ne'elam? Hidden. Yeah, hidden or disappear. Hidden. What's the connection?
What's ne'elam?
Ne'elam is hidden. So what's the connection between the word olam and ne'elam? They share a common meaning. Well, let me rephrase that. They share the common letters. But we know in Hebrew, when things share common letters, it is not by happenstance. There is something deeply significant to that common denominator. So what do we make of the fact that the letters that we use to spell out our world, olam, also refer to that which is hidden? What's the connection between our world and that which is hidden? So what do you say?
But we don't always see the presence of God apparent, but within the world.
Exactly. So that is primarily what Rabbi Schwab writes. That we have to remind ourselves that the experience that we have going through the world is only a very, very, very small piece of a much, 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 much larger puzzle. There is so much that is hidden from us. So much that is hidden from us. I've used this parable on a number of different occasions. Just share with you one more time, right? It's like a person is invited to see a magnificent tapestry, and they go, and they're extremely disappointed. This person knows art well. And he sees it and he says, it's just a bunch of random strings. It's nothing. What did I come to see? And the docent says, my friend, you're standing on the wrong side. Come to the front. You come to the front, it's, oh wow, this is a tapestry, right? And in a way, that's how we experience this world. We're on the back of the tapestry. And we remind ourselves, Melech ha'olam, God is the king of all that is revealed to us, but really all that is hidden as well. And it's another opportunity to develop a little bit more anava, a little bit more humility. We see just a sliver of the pie. And it's a very powerful idea in troubling times. The world is a crazy world these days. Crazy. Just the world is a crazy world. But a little bit of comfort for us to just appreciate that we're just seeing such a small sliver. And that is the way we experience the world. And that is why olam and ne'elam share common letters. Because our experience in this world is one where we deal with a hidden God. It's our opportunity to uncover God, to bring out God's name. All of that is true, but we have to remind ourselves that ultimately it's just a small sliver. Yes, Jeff?
That's why, now I realize, that's why Rav Schwab got into the Kabbalah discussion within Adon.
Right, it could be, I actually skipped over that point. Okay, now I want to share with you something beautiful. I told you it's a whole cholent of different brachos related ideas this morning. This next idea I think is just phenomenal from the Baruch Shamar. I'm going to just get my sitter out for a moment. You don't need a sitter because you'll be very familiar with the words. But Rav Epstein says that something very, very interesting happens, a transition that perhaps you and I have never really noticed before, that happens in the first part of every Berchas HaMitzvah. Every time we make a blessing on a commandment, which is the blessing we started with, we're doing Netilas Yadayim now. Okay? Let me read you the Hebrew and the English, and you'll tell me where the transition takes place. Baruch Atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kedishanu b'mitzvosav. I'm going to read you the English now. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has made us holy through His commandments and has commanded us to engage in study. What has changed? So let's think very clearly. In the first couple of words, we're talking to God in which person? The second person. Baruch Atah Adoshem. Blessed are you, God, you, God. Now, if we continue on in the second person, what should the words have been? Asher kidashtanu b'mitzvosav vitanu. And you, God, have sanctified us. And you, God, have commanded us. That's not what we say. We go to the third person. Asher kidishanu b'mitzvosav. You have, it's not you, it's, let me read the English. Who has made us holy through His commands. We don't directly address God. and has commanded us to engage in his study. We don't say you. We go, the nochach in Hebrew means against, like that's speaking in the second person. Nistar is hidden. We don't directly address God. Does everyone see that point? Baruch Atah, I'm talking to you, God. Surely you're playing that role today, right? I'm talking to you, God. And then Asher Kidishanu b'mitzvosav, who has commanded us in his commandments, who has sanctified us with his mitzvos. We don't directly address God anymore. We do not. So how do we understand this transition? Once we talk about Atah, still you have commanded us, you have sanctified us. We don't do that. We go to Lashon Nistar, hidden. We don't directly address God.
So you should say Shivisa.
Yeah, something along, or Sivitanu, Kidashtanu. The taf would add the second person, you. We don't say that. Who has commanded us, who has sanctified us.
We're sort of defining.
Defining. Okay, interesting. You're saying who is the you?
Who's the Baruch Hashem?
Interesting.
He's the one.
Okay, that's an interesting approach. But I'll share with you what the Baruch Shemar says. Again, we've been saying Baruch HaMitzvos for our whole lives. And I don't know, I personally did not stop and consider the fact that the first couple of words are spoken directly to God, and the next couple of words are removed. We're not directly addressing God. We're talking about him more in the third person, who has commanded us, who has sanctified us. So what do we make of this transition? So the Baruch Shamar says something very, very sharp. He says to understand what is taking place, we have to look at the Gemara in Maseches Nida. This is a well-known Gemara. The Gemara tells us, Tanu Rabbanan, and our rabbis taught us, Shlosha Shutfin Yesh B'Adam. There are three partners when it comes to the creation of man. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'Aviv V'Imo. The Almighty, a mother and a father, right? It takes, in the secular world, it takes two to tango. In the Jewish world, we have three. Aviv Mazriya Haloben, I don't know what these terms really mean. The father somehow provides the seed and the necessary elements for the white part. Shemimenu Atzmos V'Gidin V'Tziparnaim. Dr. Gantry, you can weigh in a little bit. I don't know exactly what that means. Somehow the biological, I'm not sure. I don't even know what that means. The anatomy comes partly from the man. Umoach Sheberosho V'Loven Sheba'ayin. The brain, the heart, the white of the eyes comes from the man. Imo mazras odem shemimenu or ubasa v'sa'aros. The woman provides the red parts of the body, the blood, the flesh. Again, this is probably understood on many different dimensions and scientifically, so we understand that the way it works is a bit differently these days. The last part, though, has not changed. HaKadosh Baruch Hu nosein bo ruach uneshama. HaKadosh Baruch Hu nosein bo ruach uneshama. But God has given us our spirit and our soul. So says the Baruch Shamar as follows. When we begin the bracha, we are talking to God and we're saying, Hashem, we're going along with Abu Jaham, for example. Hashem, you are the source of blessing who has given me life. Who has given me life. We don't exactly use the word life, but that's what God, Baruch, God, you are the source of blessing. I am here because you have endowed me with the ability to live. So from that perspective, we're focusing on our unique relationship with God, that we are the children of God. So we're like mishpacha. There's a familiarity here, so we can talk to God in the second person. Baruch Atah, Hashem, you are the source of my life. I breathe because of you. You've allowed my heart to pump, and there's a familiarity, a proximity. We talk to God in the second person. But we do the mitzvos with our bodies. We do the mitzvos with our bodies. So our bodies are provided, if you will, by our parents. Obviously, everything's provided by God. But in terms of the associations, there's a closer association to God when it comes to our soul. And that's what the first part of the bracha focuses on. Baruch Hashem, you are the source of life. You are the source of blessing. You have given me, you have endowed me with my life. There's a familiarity there. Baruch Atah. I can talk to you in the second person. But Asher Kidishanu b'mitzvosav. Right? But you have commanded me to do your mitzvos. Mitzvos means the actions. So that we talk already more distant. Because that's our bodies. Our bodies do mitzvos. We don't make brachos of what we think about. You can think about mitzvos all day long. You don't make any bracha. You can fulfill mitzvos in your mind. There are sheish mitzvos timidios. There are 6 constant mitzvos. Every time you think about them, you get a mitzvah. You never once make a bracha. You don't make a bracha. You only make a bracha when you do something. So our bodies are where the mitzvos happens. Our bodies, that's the chelek from our parents. There's more distance there. And that's how we take a step back. Asher kidishanu b'mitzvosav etzivanu. You have God who has sanctified us, who has commanded us. We don't directly address God in the second person, because when it comes to the mitzvos, which is more body-oriented, that already puts the attention on imo v'aviv, mother and father, and there's even more reverence, a little bit less familiarity. So we speak about God in the hidden, in the third person. That's a very interesting pshat. I don't know, you have to think about if there are other ways of explaining it, but just to share with you one other passage that certainly supports this idea that Rabbi Epstein himself brings down in source number 9, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, My dechsiv b'meisim chavshi, that when a person is dead, they're free. What does that mean? Kevan shemeis adam, once a person passes, naaseh chavshi min mitzvos, they become free from mitzvos. So Rabbi Epstein says, what do you see? That the body is closely related with the mitzvos. So that's why when we talk about the mitzvos, we speak about God in the third person, more distant. We don't directly address Him, because the body is more related to our parents. The soul is more related to God. And that perhaps can explain the transition from one to the other. A very interesting interpretation, right? How many times have we said the berachos and mitzvos and never even considered the fact that we transition from the second person to really more the third person? How many times do we consider that? And this is one beautiful interpretation to help us explain this dichotomy in the blessing. Doctor?
Actually, I was going to ask you, and isn't this the third person? And isn't it a sense of kavod for the Baruch? Because I know when I was in practice,
right,
the Hasidim used to say, "Was zok the doctor?"
Right, exactly.
They would never
right,
say,
exactly. But the question is, doctor, we start. Right, I give you the same kavod, doctor. So the doctor's so good, right? So the point is, I understand if you're consistently like that from the beginning to the end. But over here, in one blessing, we start atah, we start talking to God as you, and then we move on to the third person, more of the hidden. That's the question. Why?
Then when they're talking to you, you're almost elevated kavayachal to the Rebbeinu Shalom.
Okay. Was there someone else that wanted to say something? Okay, so I think what we'll do, the next point is a magnificent one. It's a little bit deep. I think we're going to save it for next week. So let's just take a moment or two to review what we did today. We started with the idea from Rabbi Schwab from last week that it's so important to think about Adon in our brachos. Avram introduced the word Adon. In what sense? A master knows exactly what's going on. A king is familiar overall with the country, with the government, but not intimately knowledgeable. God is our Adon, intimately familiar with what is going on in our lives, and that's why we use that name when we make a bracha. We saw that idea expressed in the pasuk in Tehillim that God knows each and every star. The question, though, is why does the Gemara focus on the second time the word Adon appears in the pasuk? Why doesn't it focus on the first time the word Adon appears in the pasuk? So Tosafos says, well, it's out of order. Okay, you could say that. Rabbi Epstein suggested that no, something significant, I should say, happened in between. The first time the word Adon is used, Avram is simply using a submissive term, God, you are my master. But then when God tells Avram, you're going to have children, they're going to inherit the land. Avram realizes that this is a God who knows Avram intimately well, who is intimately involved with his life. And certainly when he draws upon those ideas of the stars, God knows the stars, things along those lines, that Avram had a transitional moment in his life. And he realizes that God is not just a master, but God is Adon Olam. That God is the master of the universe that knows each and every person, each and every individual being in this world so intimately. And that's why the Gemara focuses on the second verse, specifically because the transition that happens from the first time the word is used to the second time the word is used. We focus on the language of the Shulchan Aruch, that ideally a person should have in mind that God is Hayah Hoveh V'yeh, as the word as it is written appears, And also has to have in mind Adon HaKol, that God is the master of all, as we read it. The Mishnah Berurah reminded us every time we say a bracha, even though we say them so many times a day, what is the chus? We say them so many times a day, we have to pause, we have to think about the words that we are using, because God is not interested in our lips moving if there is no heart behind the prayers. And then the Vilna Gaon says, if we have to choose, the primary focus is on the word Adonai as we say it, because we always put more focus on the spoken word rather than on the printed word. The connection between Olam and Ne'elam, that we exist in this world that is generally, where God's presence is generally hidden from us, and we remind ourselves of that every time we say the word Olam. And lastly, understanding the transition between the first half of the bracha and the second half. The first half where we talk directly to God, you, because we're talking about the fact that God, you're a source of blessing, you have endowed us with our souls, with our lives. There's a familiarity. Atah, you provided that. When we talk about the mitzvos, so that already we do with our bodies, more a focus of from our parents, a little bit more distance. That's why we transition to the third person. I hope you enjoyed this class as much as I enjoy teaching it. I really find these ideas to be just very, very interesting and novel, quite frankly. Things that we should have known about a long time ago. But Baruch Hashem, we have the opportunity to learn together, and I look forward to continuing our learning next week. Yeshua Kalach.